What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining me. It's a Friday night. How you all feeling on the precipice of what should be a massive sports weekend in Seattle this weekend? We got Mariners game one of the ALDS tomorrow, and then back-to-back Sunday. I definitely, for all of you that are here today, I want to hear about it. We're going to talk about football tonight, but I want to know if any of you are going to do the double header. Go see the Seahawks play the Bucs. Lumen Field at 1 o'clock on Sunday, and then head over to T-Mobile afterwards for game 2 of the ALDS to see the Mariners going up against Tariq Skubal. That should be pretty exciting. We're going to talk about that Bucs game, obviously, coming up on Sunday. Big one in the NFC. I've got some thoughts on the Buccaneers that I can't wait to hear what you guys think and how you view this game. We've got some injury updates, some big players. Well, some bad news for the Seahawks, but worse news for the Buccaneers. So we'll see how all that plays out. If you are heading down to Soto this weekend, absolutely check out these guys that are a sponsor of the show, Fast Fashion Brewing. First Avenue, right across the street from Showbox Soto, right next door to Hooverville. Get in there before, after the game. Or if you can't make it to the Mariner game, but you want to watch it with a bunch of other Mariner fans, they have a big screen in the back, and they're throwing watch parties as well. So check them out and say hi to Matt Storm. Tell him you watch the show if you do indeed. But let's get into this. We've got a lot to talk about today. We're going to do my 5 key Seahawks players to watch going into this game. And then so many connections and similarities between these two teams, but player connections, coaching connections, front office connections, geographical connections, family connections. We'll get into all of that coming up next on Seahawks Forever.
Welcome to the Seahawks Forever podcast. In-depth analysis on everything Seahawks. And now, here's your host, Dan Viens.
Subscribe to the channel if you would, please, if you haven't already. Only about half of the people that watch these videos on a regular basis are subscribers. Costs you nothing. Doesn't result in any notifications or spam or anything else. All it does is it'll recommend my videos when you go to your homepage, and it helps me as an independent full-time content creator. It helps YouTube know that you like this content, and it'll push it out to more potential viewers. Also, if you want to get over and check out the Patreon, I've got the QR code up there. You can scan it. During the bye week, we're going to ramp that up a little bit. That's going to become kind of the main hub where everything's archived, everything lives. You can watch everything or listen to it without the YouTube ads inserted, but we're also going to get a lot more engagement going over there. That's where the conversation is going to take place throughout the week, not just when I do shows. And we're even going to get some interaction too, get you guys some opportunities to vote on show content, which I'm really excited about. I think that'll be a lot of fun. So check that out if you would, please. Let's go here to start with, and let's do the injury updates. First, for your Seattle Seahawks, as suspected, the 4 players who did not practice all week long, all out. Josh Jones, we weren't expecting him back. DeMarcus Lawrence, sounded like as of Monday, really, that that thigh injury was going to keep him out at least for this game. The real disappointing ones are Julian Love and Devin Witherspoon, obviously, not just for their role on the team, of course, especially Love, really. I mean, we've seen enough from Darian Kendrick to know that I think we can weather the storm with Witherspoon being out, having Kendrick play a lot in the slot. It's just disappointing because these guys are coming off a longer week. They were supposedly ready to go. They held him out in the Saints game, specifically because short week and a divisional game coming up after it. And we thought they were going to be good to go. And now I will say this about Spoon. During the Saints game, there were some scenes, there were some shots of him celebrating on the sidelines and still kind of limping around. So I thought, okay, I don't know if we're going to see him against Arizona. But then in the game itself, and obviously adrenaline and ibuprofen can do great things. But he seemed fine. He seemed fast, explosive. We saw the pass breakup with Marvin Harrison over the middle of the field where he closed ground really quickly. He looked dynamic to me, but apparently aggravated that knee injury. And with Julian Love, it's a hamstring. So those guys are going to be out. Who knows for how long? McDonald didn't talk about any of the severity today when they announced this. But My goodness, if you're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, this is their injury list. Now, 5 players out, as you can see. Jamal Dean, cornerback. Mike Evans, we knew he was going to be out for this game. Bucky Irving, though, that's confirmed. Knew he was probably going to miss this game. You know, anytime you're seeking second opinions from specialists and it's a foot and an ankle injury, that doesn't bode well. Christian Izien, safety, he's out, and Benjamin Morrison, their rookie cornerback out of Notre Dame, is out as well. Their secondary playing extremely shorthanded, even more so than the Seahawks. And they already are without Kalijah Cansey on injury reserve. He's going to miss the year. The right side of their offensive line, Cody Mock and Luke Gadecki, both on injured reserve. And even some of the guys that are filling in for them were on this injury list, but they all look to be good to go. Levante David, though, limited all week, but that could be partially veteran load management. He is 35 years old in his 14th season. Talked about him last night on with Evan and Rhett, the guys from the Cannon Fire podcast, about how he's still going at the ripe old age of 35. So that is how that looks. This is your updated NFC West standings after last night's game. And my goodness, by all means, let's talk about that game tonight. Would love to get your thoughts on that. That was one of the most interesting Thursday night games I can remember seeing in quite some time. San Francisco, of course, sitting on top of the division at 4-1, 3-0 in the division. What a way for them to start. And in a game yesterday, I thought they really had no chance in. Kudos to that coaching staff and to Mac Jones and some of those young guys on defense who stepped up as well and played really, really well. Kendrick Bourne, filling in for all the injuries they have there at receiver with Pearsall and Jennings out. So great start for the 49ers. Look, I spent the entire offseason saying, I don't get it. This is a reset year for them. They let a lot of good players walk out the door. They're going really young on defense. They had to kind of tone down some of their cash spending this year. And so I kind of pushed back against a lot of the analysts in the offseason that were picking them to win 10, 11, 12 games. They're well on their way. I mean, you have to just tip your cap to the San Francisco 49ers. How sustainable is that without Nick Bosa on defense? They're going to be getting some guys back in a few weeks, but just a tremendous gutsy effort from them. The Rams fall to 3-2. Can't figure that team out. Goodness, they had the Eagles on the ropes and let them back in and ended up losing that game. They look like they showed up just not taking the Niners seriously yesterday. The Niners got out to a 14-0 lead. I think it was 17-3 before the Rams came back, and Matt Stafford did his thing. But they just, in this day and age, how do teams let that happen? I don't understand. And then the Cardinals at 2-2. They've got an easy one this week with the Titans, but then their schedule gets really tough. The next 3 or 4 games after that, if the Cardinals don't get it together soon, they could drop out of this race before they were ever really in it. Here is what the point differential looks like. Seahawks still on top at plus 44, the Rams at plus 16, and then the Niners and Cardinals at plus 8. Let's go ahead and get some of your comments going on the screen. See who's here. Misfit first. Good to see you. It's always good to be first, right? Carmen says, go Hawks. Bwahaha says, yo. And then Tony gives us a C and then answers it himself with the Hawks. John McGrath, good to see you. Robert Hale, thanks for being here. What impact did the 49ers win versus the Rams have? From the 49ers perspective, it can't be anything other than positive, because now they have a belief that they can win and beat good teams shorthanded and beat them with their backup quarterback who was beat to hell last night as well. At one point, came over, he's limping again. That knee is still bothering him, and it looked like he was retching. Like I thought maybe he broke some ribs, but then I saw the highlight or the replay, and it didn't look like he took any pressure on the ribs. I think what it might have been is he left the game or he limped off at one point early in the game, and it turns out he was cramping. And so they were feeding this guy bananas. Like, I think Al Michaels joked that or maybe it was Herb Street that joked that he ate like 14 bananas. That's probably why he was puking on the sideline. one can only ingest so many bananas. But now they believe that they can win without Nick Bosa, that they can win without Brock Purdy, without Ricky Pearsall and Brandon Ayuk and Jawan Jennings, and the list goes on and on. You go back to the offseason without Charvarius Ward and Dre Greenlaw and Hufanga. Oh boy, they just it's impressive. It really is. I expect the Rams to come back. I think this division is going to be a dogfight to the very end, with all three teams going down to the last couple of weeks to figure it out. And as much as I was dismissive of this when the schedule first came out, it very well could come down to week 18 in Santa Clara, Seahawks 49ers. And when the schedule also came out, I didn't like that we didn't get to play the Rams until later in the season, week 11 and week 16. Is that right? But now I like it, especially, if you get a chance to get Witherspoon fully healthy, some of those guys back. Riley Mills could be a contributor by then. So definitely, as we get farther down the road, who knows how things are going to change. But and then it gives the Seahawks about six more weeks to get their running game going too before they face the Rams. DK is a Wookiee. Hey, Dan, as Reek has not been traded yet, nobody wanting to trade for him, does this play into the Seahawks' hands in signing him to a cheaper extension? Seems other teams don't want to. There's a lot of layers to that, DK. First of all, the fact that he hasn't been traded does not in any way, shape, or form mean that no one wants to trade for him. Seahawks aren't going to give him away for nothing. You're going to have to step up and give them something for Reek Woolen. And right now, with Witherspoon still out, I'm not trading him. I'm not trading him unless you present an offer that you can't refuse. I'm just not doing it. We need the guy. And the thing to keep in mind, look at all of the metrics. What's stuck in our head is the 2 PI calls Thursday, the 2 50-50 balls that he gave up in the San Francisco game, and the PI call. But everything in between, he's one of the elite cover corners in the league. There's just play after play after play against Arizona where he's taking an entire side of the field away. It's an enigmatic situation. I understand that. And I don't think that he's in their long-term plans. I don't think he gets an extension. Regardless of what you think of Reek as a player, and by you, I just mean any of you, not picking on you, DK. When he hits the open market, and mark this down, write it down, bring it back, bring me the receipts. When he hits the open market, he's getting $80 million minimum. Teams are going to be lining up to pay that dude for the upside. So, to me, he stays on the roster until they're fully healthy and maybe even beyond that. Unless you're giving me a player that can help me win now, I don't give a shit about a day 3 pick next year. I just don't. I want him on the roster. He can help us win this year. Robert Hale, thanks for the super chat. Go Seahawks, one game at a time. My goodness, isn't that the truth? I mean, it's always the way that you should approach any season in the NFL. But this year in this division, that looks even more true. And I say this all the time, but the thing I love the most about football is the combination of the fact that they only play once a week, and then how it's so dependent on how teams match up, and also emotion and some of the intangible things, that every time I turn on a game or go to a game, there's this moment right before kickoff where I get all kind of, where anxiety and excitement hits me at the exact same time. And in that moment, I'm thinking, man, I hope we play well today. Because that's what matters, right? Like you can talk about matchups and success rate and EPA and DVOA and weaknesses and strengths and all that stuff. All that matters in this league is that you show up dialed in and ready to go, and you play well that day and you execute. Any team, you can beat any team. Last night's the best example of that. The best example of that. There is no way that the Rams should have allowed the 49ers to come into their house and do that, regardless of how many damn 49er fans were in the stands. There's no way they should have allowed that. And yet they did. And it's just how well you play. Keep that in mind sometimes, especially if we get to some games on the schedule coming up where you're like, I don't know how we can match up with that team. You show up and you execute and you play well. This Seahawks team can beat any team in the NFL, hands down. Also, start looking around the league at the best teams, the teams that are traditionally the best, and almost all of them have some issues going on, either injuries or poor performance or what have you. This season is wide open. I'll tell you that. Bryce Coots, what's up, my man? Oh, it's always good I appreciate the generosity. Thank you, my friend. I owe you a hat. I got to get you a hat. The store, I got an issue with the store right now. It's kind of on pause. I'll get that all fixed by the bye week as well. I got a bunch of stuff planned for that, and we'll get you that hat. How concerned are you about the re-injuries of Love and Spoon? We're lucky the Bucs are more banged up than us for the game. More concerned about Julian Love. Obviously, he's the quarterback of that defense. Maybe right there with Ernest Jones, and even at less than 100%. Obviously, he was flying around, making plays. I'm a little less concerned about Spoon, to be fair. Like, you saw the impact that he has on the field. He has his detractors. There's people that think he doesn't make enough plays, and I've criticized him for that before too. He still just has the one interception, but it's all the other things that he does. He makes life hard for the offense. I mean, Bryce, you certainly know that as an offensive coach. His value is hard to put a finger on, but the fact that I'm excited to see what Darian Kendrick can do again with 2 more weeks of practice and familiarity with this scheme. When you look at how well he played against Pittsburgh and New Orleans, he had hardly unpacked his bags. And then Julian Love, it's another opportunity for Ty Okada to prove that he can get things done. I feel better about the fact that D'Anthony Bell's on the roster. And Mike's going to do what he does. We're going to talk about Nick Emenwari here in a minute too, and he plays into this equation as well. And that's a big part of what we're going to see, I think, on Sunday. All right, let's see here. Misfit says, I think we need to destroy the Bucs, but it will be a 2 or 3 point game. I'll get to my general thoughts about this matchup here in a minute, but that kind of sums it up, doesn't it? Misfit says, I have one of the same hats as Dan, but I'm wearing a throwback hat this week and right now. So I have basically this version of the throwback where it's the 47 brand. It's the unstructured kind of old floppy hat or whatever. It's my favorite kind. They're just super comfortable. But the problem with throwback, I can't wear any throwback gear with a green screen because it's chroma key colored and everything would project right on top of it. So, Robert Hale says, I don't think it's an easy win. Here's what I'll say about this. Well, shoot, let me just stop teasing it. I agree with Misfit in the sense that this is a game the Seahawks should win. And I think it's a game they should win fairly decisively. But that word should, super tricky and really dicey. Again, last night, right? The Buccaneers are super beat up. The entire right side of their offensive line is on injured reserve. Tristan Wirfs, even talking to the guys last night, they say he's getting there, but he still isn't the Tristan Wirfs that we were used to seeing before the health problems that he had in the offseason and through training camp. Mike Evans being out is huge, no matter how well Emeka Egbuka's playing. Chris Godwin's back, but how close is he to 100%? They targeted him 10 times last week trying to get him going. He only caught 3 balls. Baker's banged up. He's got a knee and he's been nursing his throwing arm. Actually, he's got a bicep injury. And then defensively, as great as Levante David has been in his career, the guys last night were saying that he's kind of a liability, can't cover anymore, can't run as well as he used to, that's a real weakness for them. And that secondary with 3 guys being out in the secondary. Their best pass rusher, Kalijah Cansey, being on injured reserve. Yaya Dobby's picked up the slack. He leads the NFL actually with 5 sacks. And then they got the big guys up front. Don't know if we'll see Greg Gaines, although he wasn't ruled out. So maybe we will see the former Husky. Vita Vea, obviously, is always going to be there in the middle, stuffing things. There also, let's look at some of the other sort of intangible reasons. The Seahawks are coming off extra rest at home, didn't have to change time zones. The Philadelphia Eagles, the Bucs are flying across country to play the Seahawks 6 days after playing the Philadelphia Eagles, one of the most physical teams in the league. Much tougher turnaround for Tampa Bay. Also, first 3 weeks of the year, Bucs went 3-0. Cool. Baker led them. They needed a Baker Mayfield game-winning drive on the last drive of each of those 3 games against 3 teams that were a combined 1-8 through the first 3 weeks. That's why, when I see NFL Network and their 10 pickers, 5 of them pick the Seahawks, 5 pick the Bucs, I'm like, based on what exactly? I think there's still, the jury is still out on the Seahawks for some people. They still need to see it for 6, 7, 8 games, I guess, to believe it, and probably still some questions about the offense. John McGrath, glad the Niners won. Any chance to drop a loss on the Rams is good in my book. I also don't think the Niners can maintain their slight lead in the division with all their injuries. It's an interesting way to look at it, and I wrestled with this. I actually said leading into the game that I thought we should be rooting for the 49ers because that we should be rooting for the Rams to put the 49ers behind us so that the loss to them doesn't, matter as much until we meet them again later. And then knowing that we have 2 games ahead still with the Rams, we control our own destiny. That's just kind of how I think. I think a little bit more like optimistically. But I totally get the other viewpoint. And now that it's gone that way, I think this is the best case scenario. I hate that the 49ers are 3-0. That's tough. But the fact that we know that they're not physically a better team than we are. We faced them week 1 with their starting quarterback and Nick Bosa, and they weren't physically better than us. And I think that's the first time we can say that in maybe several years. It's just, a couple of plays that didn't go our way, and an offense that just kind of didn't really find their identity week 1. And now they have. I'd love to play them again now. I think if we played the 49ers again this weekend already, turn around quick, play them at Lumen again, I think it's a different contest. I really do. And so I think, the more chaos in the division, the better. And that's why I think it's going to be a dogfight to the end. I think the next time they play, the Rams will probably win. We'll probably beat the Niners week 18. We'll probably split with the Rams. Like, it's just going to be this dogfight kind of all the way to the end. Yeah, John says any loss for the Rams is great for the Seahawks. John says a win against the Bucs will be huge for this team. The throwback uniforms are going to be awesome to see again. Let me show you those, and I want to get into some of the connections because this is cool stuff. Let's do. Hold on. So I put this list together because a couple of things hit me right away. Like, hey, they've got this and that, and then I started digging a little bit more. But it's crazy how many connections these 2 teams have. And just those throwbacks just look amazing. We can start just with the 2 guys on the screen. Emeka Egbuka, number 2 on the left. JSN on the right. Obviously, they have the Ohio State connection, right? They crossed paths one year, and I think JSN had the record-setting year. I think most yardage in the history. In Buckeye history, and then he got hurt the next year, and Egbuka was kind of the guy as a freshman that picked up the slack. I think that's how that timeline worked. But 2 of the best to ever do it in one of the greatest wide receiver schools ever. And so that's one of the first cool connections. UW East, like all of the different UW players in this game, including I mentioned Vita Vea already, Greg Gaines, of course, and then 2 of their 3 tight ends, Cade Otton, the starter, and Devin Culp, also drafted last year. He's on that team. And then Egbuka, the other connection, grew up in Tacoma or Steilacoom before going to Ohio State. By the way, he was just named Offensive Rookie of the Month, 18 catches, 282 yards, and 4 touchdowns already. Then you have the quarterback connection, and this is just unbelievable. They should do a 30 for 30 on these 2 guys alone. They both came out in the 2018 class. Baker, the first pick in the draft. Darnold, the 3rd pick. And we know just another little sort of layer to that story is that's the year that Josh Allen came out, wasn't it? And John Schneider was in love with Josh Allen, and that's the year There reportedly were talks between the Seahawks and the Browns. He was trying to get the Browns to trade for Russell Wilson so they could have the first pick, where he would have taken Josh Allen, if you recall that. So that's just kind of another little side storyline here. But they were both in that class. They obviously both were given up on by their original teams. And then they spent this weird season together in 2022 in Carolina, where, the Jets trade Darnold to Carolina in 2021. He starts, I think, 13 games, 9 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. He had some injuries. He started 11 games as a starter. And then they sign Mayfield in the offseason. So they play about a half season together in 2022. Baker actually beats him out for the starting job in training camp. And then he gets off to a terrible start. Darnold comes in and kind of steadies the ship and finishes the season okay. In fact, I remember seeing a little bit of Darnold late that year for the Panthers and thinking, he's still got something to him. Never thought it would end up where it is now. But through it all, those guys have become best friends. And the other similarity is they basically are on the same financial path as well, right? Baker signed the 1-year, $4 million deal his first year in Tampa after Tom Brady retired. Darnold signed for a little bit more, but it was a 1-year prove-it deal, about $10 million in Minnesota. And then they each followed that up with Baker's is 3 years, $100 million. Sam's is 3 years and can top out at $105 million. Just the similarities there are kind of crazy. Definitely worthy of a 30 for 30. Best frenemies is the next one. John Schneider and Jason Licht are extremely close friends, best friends. They kind of came up the same way, grinding it out through the scouting world and working their way up that way. They're both from the Midwest. They were road scouts early in their career, and their families have gotten really close. Schneider has said that his wife Tracy and Licht's wife Blair are like sisters. They have, even Schneider has talked about how during like roster cut down week, they'll bounce ideas off each other and stuff and kind of lean on each other to get through stressful times. And they're two of the most respected GMs in the league, not just for the job they do with their teams. You look back at Licht's last 4 drafts, and it's pretty remarkable. He's gotten 3 or 4 starters out of each draft, which is about as well as you can hope for. Schneider's right there with him. But that they're also known around the league as 2 of the nicest guys in the entire league. So no surprise that they are friends. Family ties. We've got Charlie Heck starting at right tackle. And some of you younger folks, younger Seahawks fans, might not know what the heck I'm talking about. What the heck I'm talking about. I know. Charlie Heck is Andy Heck's son. Andy Heck, the first-round draft pick of the Seattle Seahawks in 1989 out of Notre Dame, I believe. And started for 5 years before moving on in free agency. He's now the offensive line coach at Kansas City. And then Florida ties. We got some Florida boys on the Seahawks roster as well. Of course, Elijah Arroyo played his college football at Miami, and he's from Orlando. Shaq Griffin's from St. Petersburg, played at UCF. Mike Morris is from Belle Glade, played his high school ball at American Heritage. Tyrese Knight was born in Lakeland, and Kenny McIntosh, of course, on injured reserve, was born in Fort Lauderdale as well. So just tons and tons and tons of connections. Plus, not the least of which is that they came into the league at the same time, right? It's kind of crazy. Let's see where we're at here. Crush the cream pops. It's going to be such a gorge. It looks like it's going to be nice weather, like 68, 69 degrees and no rain, which I was really hoping for because those uniforms are just going to look unbelievable on a sunny day. Bwahaha, I see your comment there about the Hawk's Nest. That was fun. He was having a good time down there last night. Let me see here. What else we got? Yep, in Hawk's Eye, when you guys are done here, well, let's see. I got to convert to West Coast time. 2 hours from now, so 7 o'clock Pacific time. Let's all reconvene over at the Hawk's Eye with Bryce and Mookie. I'll hop in there, and we'll chat from that side, too. That'll be cool. Let's see. All right, let's get into this. So I picked my 5 players to watch for this game. Let me address this and then we can just chat. First one's Nick Emenwari for me. Like, how can it not be? Hang on 1 second. There we go. Nope. Okay. He only played 5 snaps week 1, and Mike Macdonald had such a big role for him in that game plan and in this defense that basically when he went out on the 5th play after making a big-time run stop at the line of scrimmage, showing off his physicality, they played base defense the rest of the way. So really excited to see how they're going to use him. I think we're going to see him do a little bit of everything. At times, we might see him on the field with Ernest Jones and not with Tyrese Knight or Drake Thomas, essentially playing weak side linebacker. We might see him up on the line of scrimmage, going after the quarterback. We'll see him covering tight ends. And I think a big role for him potentially Sunday will be taking care of Rashad White. Bucky Irving out of the game, Rashad White. We know what a good pass catcher he can be and how dynamic he was at times in that role over the last couple of years. So I think we'll see a lot of Emenwari on there. So I think they really took their time with Emenwari, where it sounded like he was practicing in full before the Cardinal game. But McDonald even touched on this a couple of weeks ago when he first got hurt, that like because he's a rookie, we might err on the side of caution, hold him out an extra week when the time comes. So he should be 100% ready to go. And also with 4 more weeks of film study, game planning, watching how this defense executes, that's valuable time, I think. And whatever he was going to do week 1, there was probably going to be some rookie mistakes. There's still probably going to be more, but I think he's probably more prepared to play now. And I can't wait to see what he does. The other two, I put kind of a tie here. Mafe and Hall. This is crazy when you start to look at the numbers. Their production is a total enigma, but also one of the reasons that the Seahawks are one of the best pass rushing teams in the NFL. Through 4 games, they have 14 total tackles between them and 0 sacks. And so, there's a lot of people out there that really lean heavily into stats, and they make their player judgments based on statistics alone. The ones that will argue, that player stinks because he has a 210 batting average. Stuff like that, right? 0 sacks and only 14 tackles through 4 games. And yet they're 2 of the biggest reasons the Seahawks are number 2 as a team in the league in pass rush win rate and pressures. According to Next Gen Stats, and the way they measure pass rush win is if they can beat their block within 2.5 seconds. And they're the ones that they use the GPS chips that are in all the players' pads. And they measure that movement, right? Mafe is 6th in the entire league, and Hall is 9th among edge defenders in pass rush win rate. They're constantly affecting the quarterback and impacting the pocket. If you're a YouTube paid member, Pro Bowl or higher, or you're on Patreon, and again, that QR code's right up above, then you probably saw the Hawks Film Lab that Bryce and I did last week, and he broke down, we focused on Uchenna Nwosu kind of in his first full game back, but also in the process of doing that, like Bryce really, shared some of his insight on how their pressure plan. And you hear all the players. You hear Leonard Williams talk about it today. You hear Mike Macdonald talk about how they're connected, and it all works in tandem. You don't just have guys freelancing. Mike Macdonald never tells a guy just pin your ears back and go get that guy, no matter what. You have to stay in your lane. You have to account for your gap. You have to anticipate the quarterback getting out of the pocket, which will be an issue again this week, even with Baker, kind of on a knee. Leonard Williams said today, like, he turns into a running back when he gets outside the pocket, and they just faced a guy like that. Kyler Murray, obviously, he had the one run where he kind of got away, but they really kept him in control. And it's because if you watch the All-22, you watch the tape, they're very intentional about how they hold those edges and stay in their lanes. And so they're able to get pressure, and they're also doing it at the 28th lowest rate in the league of blitzing and sending extra rushers. Now, I did feel like, because I actually watched the game again last night, not on all 22, but on just the condensed version. And they're remember those Pete Carroll teams, we would talk about this on occasion, how they just didn't ever stunt that often. We didn't see a lot of stunts and twists. They're doing that. And that combined with, some of the simulated pressures, bringing 7-8 guys up on the line. You don't know who's coming and who's not, and how many guys are versatile. It's been remarkable how they've been able to get pressure. But Hall and Mafe have been so close so many times where the quarterback is getting rid of it just as they get there. And they're getting QB hits for it, but they're not getting sacks. I think that changes. I think at least one of these guys gets sacked this week. The other guy, I'm going to stay on the edge group because I think this is one of the keys of the game, is Chenna. He is back. You guys, I urge you to go watch that video. If you don't want to sign up for the full membership, you can just buy it a la carte. But it's great stuff. If you've never seen Bryce break down coaching tape, it's a treat. But Chenna is back. And I think they did the same thing with him. I think they probably could have played him week 1 or 2, but they wanted to make sure when he was back, he was 100%, just like the way they treated Abe Lucas. He's explosive. He's got his bend. He had 2 sacks in the game, and they weren't flukes. He's converting speed to power. He's taking on blockers. You could see the instincts and the discipline are there. There were a lot of fans that wanted to move off of Nwosu, that were so frustrated he wasn't ready to go week 1 that they just wanted to scrap it, trade him, cut him, get rid of him, let's save the cap money, go sign Clowney or whatever. Man, I'm glad they didn't. I think he's a Mike McDonald football player. He's still just 28 years old. He's under contract for another year. Now, if he's back next year, I think they would adjust that contract. They don't want that cap hit. But if he makes it through this year, and this version of Uchenna Nwosu is who we see make it through the rest of the season, and he stays healthy, then yeah, they'll tack a void year on or another year or whatever and spread out some of that money, and he'll still be part of this plan because he can still do it at a high level, and he's an ideal fit for McDonald's defense. And without DeMarcus Lawrence, Nwosu's probably the best run defender of that group after Lawrence. And we're going to need him to do that tomorrow. And I said it, I think it's key to the game. I think going both ways. So Seahawks number 2 in the league in pass rush win rate. The Buccaneers are 30th in the league in pass block win rate. A lot of that's due to injuries, right? Week 1, they didn't have Wirfs. They had to move Graham Barton from center out to left tackle. Aren't a lot of guys in the league that can do that. And then they had to move a bunch of guys around, but playing, backups at right guard and right tackle, there's going to be opportunities to get to Baker, especially if he's not 100%. And Baker will throw you some balls too. I watched that Eagles game, and he'll give you chances. He's completing less than 60% of his passes this year. And there's going to be some opportunities for takeaways and sacks. On the other side, Tampa Bay can get after the passer a little bit, but they're missing some guys. And I think Seattle's ability to protect Sam Darnold, get the ball out quick, and be able to hopefully pick on that secondary against a very aggressive defensive play caller in Todd Bowles, who loves to blitz at one of the highest rates in the league. So very contrasting styles defensively on Sunday. If we just continue to see what that offense has been doing, getting the ball out quick, then I think it's going to lend itself to how important these next 2 guys are in my 5 to watch. One is Cooper Kupp, and I love this picture here of him waving. It's almost like he's saying, hey, don't forget about me. Don't forget about me. I'm still here. He's been productive. He's second on the team with 15 catches on 20 targets for 162 yards. No touchdowns yet, but he on nearly half of his catches have gone for first downs. He's played a big role there, especially in the middle of the field. And I'll just go right to my last guy because I think they're kind of in the same bucket, A.J. Barner. He just seems to be getting better every week. Had the touchdown against Arizona, obviously. Could have picked Arroyo here as well, but I had him a couple weeks ago. I just think Barner is a guy that continues to get better and get more confident. And keep in mind, when he was drafted, he was one of the youngest players in any position group in the draft last year. He's 21 years old when he was drafted. And so he's starting, with every time we see him play, I feel like he looks a little quicker, a little more athletic. But with as aggressive as Bowles' defenses can be, and as much as he likes to send extra rushers, I think I saw the number today. It's over 50%. It's like 55 or 56% of the time he sends extra rushers. So it's imperative for Sam to recognize those quickly. And he's been getting the ball out super quick anyway, right? Top 5, top 6 in the league in time to throw. And so that's just going to lend itself, because I'm sure even with those injuries in the secondary, Bowles is going to have a plan for JSN and trying to take him away as much as they can. He's going to be doing that with young cornerbacks, though. Maybe the rookie out of Kansas State, Jacob Parrish, will be the guy that's on him the most. But I think it just amplifies the importance of Kupp and Barner, that middle of the field, where Sam Darnold has been the best quarterback in the NFL at operating in the middle of the field in that intermediate range this year. And that'll have to continue, I think. So those are my 5 to watch. Let me do this real quick before we get some more discussion, because if you didn't think that sleeper deal was good before, it's even better now. In addition to their 100% match on your first deposit up to $100, they are going to give you a free $20 too. You can see it right there, without a deposit needed. So if you just want to get started, you want to dip your toe in, you can take advantage of that deal as well. Terms and conditions apply. But it's all the other stuff that you can do on Sleeper that I keep pounding the table for and telling people about. It's my favorite app. It really is. I've played fantasy football on it. I've played best ball fantasy, daily fantasy sports. There's prop picks. And then, 30 of you are in the Seahawks Forever Pick'em League. By the way, do you know how many of us out of the 31 people in the Seahawks Forever Pick'em League got last night's game right? Yeah. This one. Big fat 0. Nobody picked the 49ers in that game. So we all kind of got off to crappy starts. But anyway, check out the Sleeper app today and take advantage of that deal. You will not be disappointed. The other thing that's great with is following games, like literal real-time play-by-play tracking and stats, and you can react to them and chat with everybody else that's on there too. It's pretty cool. All right, let's get back to some of your questions here. Tony Borges Silva, new member. Thank you for becoming a member. I really appreciate that. And then he asks, are you worried about Knight at all? He doesn't look like the same player as last year. Thanks for the super chat. So just last night, again, I was going back over some All-22, and then I watched the condensed version again, and I was watching some of that. And basically, Drake Thomas was the starter against Arizona, but they sort of alternated. I wasn't able to really pinpoint what situations they were alternating in, but they haven't given up on Knight. Like, Thomas is starting, but Knight is still playing. He looked a little slower to me. And I don't know if he's gained weight, maybe trying to be more physical, which I didn't think was an issue for him before. I just keep going back to that mystery medical issue he had in preseason where he had the knee injury, but then they said, there was a second thing that was, I think the words were medical issue. They never told us what that was. We'll probably never find out. They were waiting for more information. That to me sounds like had to go see a specialist. Some people have speculated like core injury or something else. He just doesn't look as explosive. So I'm still bullish on the upside because I think we saw some of the traits last year. Really productive tackler in college. That's one of the skills that we see in the scouting world that translates usually from college to the pros. If you make a lot of tackles in college, it usually means that you're pretty good at sniffing out the ball and stacking and shedding and beating blocks and taking angles and getting to guys. And so I was thinking about this very subject today because I was actually starting. For the first time, I sat down today and started watching some scouting tape. And guess where I started? Inside linebackers. And I was watching Anthony Hill from Texas. And then, Arvell Reese, the kid from Ohio State. And I was thinking, okay, well, I could see them targeting inside linebacker high in the draft next year. Like both of those guys, Hill and Reese, are very Mike McDonald-y. I think Reese might be the most McDonald-y guy in the draft. He's a former safety, plays inside linebacker and outside linebacker and edge. He's long and rangy. Kind of reminds me of Demarion Overshone, who came out of Texas a couple years ago, plays for the Cowboys now. But I was thinking, okay, what if they did that? There are going to be fans that say, and mark my words, they'll say, what a waste of a draft pick that was. We wasted a 4th round draft pick, which just isn't the way the draft works. But the thing about Knight is he can play weak side linebacker or Mike. And so maybe his ceiling long-term is that he's your 3rd linebacker. And he's a guy that can play if you need him and he can be really good. But I think he can be more than that. But I don't think he's shown enough to, it's a long season and we could see him get healthier. We could see him get better, right? But at this point, if the draft were being held next week, I'm not drafting an inside linebacker because I took Tyrese Knight last year in the 4th round. So yeah, Hawks Nest, thanks for the super chat. Let's get this dub. How you feeling, buddy? He was at the game last night, right? Were you at the game or were you just at like some of the tailgate stuff? That must have been such a weird atmosphere. Like, no LA Rams fan can ever again come at us with, I saw a lot of opposing fans at Lumen Field for that game. Like, it looked like there weren't any Rams fans there at all last night. It's crazy to me. Cam Walls, thanks for the super chat. Chris Long on his pod said Darnold's one of the worst versus the blitz this season. Does the advanced analytics back that up? I have not looked at those this week. I suspect, and I could be wrong, and I'll, when we get off the air here, I'll check it out. But no, in fact, gosh, let me see if I can find this. And maybe this doesn't have it. But I put that spreadsheet together earlier this week here it is. Let's get this up here. I got to take something away. I'm sharing too many images, you guys. I'm doing too much stuff. All right, now let's do it. So I took a chart that Sam Hoppen updates every week with all of the major quarterback metrics, and left to right, PFF grade, EPA per play, success rate, CPOE, which is completion percentage over expected, turnover worthy plays, clean EPA, clean success, non-play action success, pressure to sack. Now there, he's 16th. So he's middle of the league. That's the lowest metric on this chart that he's ranked in. But overall, and see what I did here is I created a composite average. He's number 1. When you look all across the board, he's 2 in PFF grade, 5 in EPA, 3 in success rate, number 1 in completion percentage over expected, number 2 in least amount of turnover worthy plays, play action, non-play action success, pressure to sack is the one where he's kind of middle of the pack. Here's what I'll say about that. I don't think it's Sam. I think Sam is getting through his reads incredibly quickly, getting rid of the ball really quickly. That shows up in time to throw, shows up in the completion percentage, his success rate, all those other things. I think what's happening is the Seahawks pass protection has been so much better overall. I think they're up to 20th now in the team rankings for ESPN's pass rush win rate, which for the last 3 or 4 seasons, they've been 30, 31st, or 32nd in that metric. They've been slowly moving up this year. But when they do allow pressure, it's quick pressure. And because we don't have a high volume, our throwing volume is less than a lot of other teams in the league. In fact, I heard this today, but I haven't had a chance to confirm it. We may be the only team in the league right now that has the ratio of run to pass is slanted slightly more towards the run. We run it more than we throw it. And so that's going to amplify those pressures and those sacks. It's only been sacked 6 times. But with the lower volume, then it shows a higher percentage. So I do think that sounds like, and no slight to Chris Long, like we're colleagues on the Blue Wire Network together, but that sounds like I'm looking for reasons to poke holes in what Sam Darnold's doing, because it's the only stat that doesn't look great in his favor, but there's a pretty easy explanation for it. So that's my response to that. What else we got? Yeah. Any practice squad elevations we'll know tomorrow. It'd be interesting to see what they do. So, because DeAnthony Bell's on the 53 now, right? Last week they brought up Peely, and they brought up who's the other elevation last week? Man, my goodness, I can't even remember. I think they might bring up one of the Peely guys, or one of the nose tackles again, potentially. But with Spoon and Julian out, probably one of the secondary guys, Jarek Reed or maybe Shaq again. So we'll have to see. What else we got? No, Ernest isn't out. No, he wasn't on the injury report at all. He is good to go. Tuxzilla says, who's that 400-pound Bucs nose tackle guy where they load him onto the plane and maybe land late because of it? What's his name? Desmond Watson? Is that his name? Out of Florida State? No, I don't think he's on the roster. They cut him in training camp. He couldn't lose enough weight. He was like 450. They brought him back in for a tryout a week or two ago, but I don't think they followed that up with a signing. I could be wrong. If only there was a way I could check, right? Let's see. First, let me see if I got the name right, because I'd be pretty impressed with myself, actually, a little bit. Okay. They did re-sign him to the practice squad. Oh, God. That body. I'm sorry. You just can't. You can't move enough. It's so easy to run around guys in the NFL if you can't move laterally. To me, he has no value as a professional football player unless they just think that maybe he's motivated enough to lose. I mean, he'd probably have to get down to where the first number's a 3. Okay, so Ricky Ricardo says no one is running on the Bucs. Let's check something out. Let's just see. I was looking at this earlier today, but I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head. So, Tampa Bay as a team. Run stop win rate. They're 15th. They're middle of the pack. So let's look at more traditional stats. Let's look at rushing yards per game. Yards per game, they're 5th. But again, let's see. Played the Falcons week 1. How'd Bijan do? $12 carries, 24 yards. Okay. Week 2. The Texans, Nick Chubb ran it 12 times for 43 yards. That's it. They didn't even commit to the running game. Jets. Braylon Allen had 6 carries for 30 yards. Breece Hall had 9 for 21. They've been good. They've been good. We'll see. And then let me just take a look at what the box score for the Eagles game looked like. Saquon 19 for 43. Yeah. They've done a damn good job stopping the run. Let me go back to where I was here because I wanted to double check on their see, I should have opened a new tab instead of having to back arrow through all of that stuff. All right, let me go back to this again though. Yeah, 15th in run stop win rate. And then and they can get after the passer too. So another good test for the offensive line. And for Clint Kubiak, right? Got to call a good game. Because that And Todd Bowles showed something in that Philadelphia Eagles game that was interesting too. He's known as a guy that's just super uber aggressive, sends extra rushers at a higher rate than most teams. And the Eagles kind of shredded them in the first half. And so then what did he do in the second half? Started rushing 4, dropping 7, started using some sim pressures and stuff. Does that sound familiar? Like changed his game plan in the second half, and it allowed them to kind of come back in that one. So it'll be interesting to see how aggressive he wants to be again, when they get here on Sunday. Flight 266 says pound the rock. The one thing that I have been really impressed with Kubiak is he doesn't abandon the run when it's not working. And we've seen that in the Pittsburgh game. We saw it in this game on Thursday, where it feels like it's not working. You're kind of running into a brick wall. But God, Ryan Grubb would quit on the running game if your first run got stuffed. But Shane Waldron would do that too. He would just stop going back to it. Kubiak doesn't, and yet we'll still convert third downs. We'll get some 4 or 5 yard runs. I think that running game is going to come together at some point. And then here's Coach Bryce. Hope the play action has a lot of boots this week. Doing play action, setting up in the pocket might be a challenge with the interior pressure. The other thing they did against the Cardinals is a ton of true dropbacks out of under center, which I love. Like this is old school throwback offense. Mike Holmgren, I haven't heard him talk about it yet, but I bet he loves this offense because it probably looks really, really familiar to him. It's a damn shame that Robbie Oates is out. I just don't think Brady Russell is anything close to what Robbie Oates is. And I think that's why we saw, I didn't see the exact snap count, but it felt like we saw Russell out there less. We saw less 21 and 22 personnel with the fullback than we did when Oates was out there. That's a shame. But maybe against a team like this, with a guy like Vea especially, I'll tell you what, I almost made him one of my players to watch. It's a big game for Jalen Sundell because, I love the athletic upside. I've said that for a long time. I think he has a chance to be a long-term starter in this league. I think he's been better than some fans think he's been, or than maybe PFF thinks he's been. Just when I watch the tape, I see him do a lot of good things. But the one thing you worry about with Sundell is his anchor. How is he going to be at the point of attack going against Vita Vea? Obviously, he's not going to be doing it alone. He's going to get help from Gray Zabel and Anthony Bradford. But I think it's an important game for him. Maybe a game that the matchup might favor Oluwatimi a little bit, but not that I'm saying I would want to make a switch because I don't. I want to give Sundell every opportunity to show he can do it and be the guy and continue to develop. And this would be a good test for him. So that's crazy. Talking about Desmond Watson again, Charlie the Unicorn says, dude could lose another 100 and still be over 365. That's crazy. That's insane. Hawks Nest says, thanks to Dogzilla, nailed the prediction. He was one of the only ones that picked the Niners. I kind of did. I wish I would have been more definitive about it when I was on the NFC West mixtape episode a couple days ago with Rob Guerrera. He was talking about, he was kind of being, how you sort of downplay your own team's chances to prepare yourself emotionally. He was doing that. He was like, they don't have any chance to compete against the Rams with all these guys out and blah, blah, blah. And I said, in this division, in this league, this is exactly the week that the 49ers would probably win. I didn't make it definitive enough. I got a couple questions here about Riley Mills. No timeline at all. No timeline at all given by Mike McDonald, other than, look, even back when I was in, attending training camp practices, he was running straight ahead then and no brace, no limp. I think we're seeing, for the most part, especially with the younger players, obviously now in hindsight, looks like maybe they should have held out Witherspoon and Love for another week. But I think they were overly cautious with them in Worry. I think they were overly cautious with Nwosu. And I think they're going to do the same thing with Riley Mills because they love him. And I think they want him to not only be 100% healthy, but give him that full 4 weeks of practice time to really get ready. So maybe it's only the last 3-4 weeks of the season, but he comes in and can play a role and help this team. But they're not going to jeopardize anything that might cause him to aggravate that injury till they're 100% sure that he's ready. Because I think you talk about 26 and beyond, and that's a massive contributor that they see. Another aspect of this too is maybe we don't see him this year, because if they get to like week 15, 16, where you're only going to get him for 2 or 3 games, maybe a playoff game or 2 or 3 at most, and your defense is playing well and you're healthy enough, then if you don't play your entire rookie season because of injury, this happened with Darrell Taylor, your contract tolls. So it's weird. You can't win Rookie of the Year your second year if you don't play as a rookie, which is dumb. But your contract just carries forward. So he would still be under contract for 4 years. We wouldn't lose. Basically, it's a redshirt year. So if it gets close like that, like I can't wait to see what he does. But if it's week 15, 16, I don't know if I want to burn a redshirt year essentially to get him out there. Charlie Unicorn, bold prediction, predicting a 50-plus yard run, something going to bust out during the game for Seattle. That is the thing I'm seeing. Now, they're still number 1 in the entire league in plays that are stuffed at the line of scrimmage or behind it. And that's got to get better. But we're seeing in between those plays, we're seeing the 5-6 yarders. We're seeing some explosives. And I just think that's going to continue to come as these young, still the youngest offensive line in the league, learning these target points on where to aim for guys in this zone scheme. And the fact that, as Richard Bennett says, I don't care, run the damn ball. They don't give up on it. I think that's one of the, I'll do grades during the bye week, but right now, if I'm giving Kubiak a grade, I'm giving him a B+. I just love everything about how he's called games. There's always 1 or 2 plays every week where you're like, why'd they do that? Why'd they run out of shotgun on 4th and a half foot, right? I get it. But you take week 1 away, and I think he's been... You might be able to make a case that it's the best 3-game run of play calling we've seen since Darrell Bevell was here. Like, I don't feel... I'm not going to shy away from making that statement. Week 1 was weird, and it cost us a game. I would put week 1 more on Clint Kubiak than I would on Reek Woolen, like many of you want to. But, yeah, you have to keep running it, and he does that. Cam Walt says, Clint's still figuring out our strengths in the run game. Yeah, he's used a little bit of everything. Charlie Unicorn, keys to the game, attack the Bucs via tight ends. That's where AJ comes into play. Maybe we'll see a little bit more of Arroyo. The thing we haven't seen from Arroyo yet is a seam shot. Like, that guy can stretch seams. Like, he can be Jimmy Graham. And so, let's give him a couple shots there. Their linebackers are a bit suspect. Yeah, especially talking about Levante David, not what he used to be. He's been called, the guys that were on last night said he's a little bit of a liability. And they're banged up at cornerback now. Yeah, playing a couple really young guys in the secondary. Running the football, it's an attitude, a lifestyle. Ask Schlereth. Hell yeah. We're finally getting back to it. Yeah, John, still. I think he's getting better. He says a lot of those run plays that went nowhere were due to K9 dancing around instead of being decisive and picking his lanes. I think they're still getting better. But, God, there was that one play against the Cardinals. I highlighted it on a show the day after the game, and he had a perfect running lane that was blocked perfectly, and I even put graphics on the screen. You could see the lane. It looked like this, but he had a safety right in the middle of it, but that was the only guy. And all he had to do was put his shoulder down. He would have got 4 or 5 yards, or he could have tried to give him a little shimmy and beat him, and he might have scored. But at minimum, that's a 4 or 5 yard run. But as soon as he sees that guy, he stops before he's even in the hole and pivots out and gets stuffed, trying to break it outside. Like, that's I feel like Walker's getting there. He's better. There were some runs in that Pittsburgh game where it looked like, okay, he's starting to get back to more of a north-south mentality like he had the second half of his rookie year. But he still has that muscle memory, that faulty wiring that makes him react that way sometimes when he sees things that he should see differently. Yeah, I do, Flight. I do. Tony Borges Silva, thanks again for the super chat. 24 hours until Mariners playoffs. Yeah, there won't be a live stream tomorrow. There won't be any Seahawks Forever content tomorrow. I'm actually giving myself the entire day. I'm going to watch college football all damn day, and then I'm going to sit and watch the Seattle Mariners play in the ALDS. How weird it's been to sit back with a bye and watch all the wild card series. It's crazy. And there's a lot of questions about the pitching lineup. I actually like it. I think it makes sense to go with Gilbert and Castillo in games 1 and 2. Not Gilbert, but Kirby and Castillo games 1 and 2 because their home road splits are so pronounced. Kirby's so much better at home. It also gives you the opportunity then, if it goes to a game 5 back at home, Kirby would be fully rested and able to start that game again in Safeco where he's so much better. I also think his last start looked like the old Kirby, so you're kind of playing the hot hand there. Castillo's last 3 starts have been great. He's better at home. Then you go Gilbert in game 3, and maybe Gilbert's got a little fire under his butt because he didn't get picked to pitch one of the first 2 games. And you know, maybe he's pitching to win the series in game 3 at that point, right? And then you probably go Bryce Miller in game 4 because it does not sound like we're going to see Brian Wu. But then it gets really exciting. If you can get to the ALCS, you start thinking about Wu back in the rotation, Bryce Miller out of the bullpen. Don't even get me started. I don't even want to get ahead of myself. Let's not get there. Yeah, Richard, I'm kind of surprised that we don't see a little bit of this with Barner as a fullback. I sure as hell don't want to see another 4.5-yard shotgun run. So if they have another 4th down conversion where it's short, they either better throw the damn football, maybe do a play action boot, or get Barner in there again on that tush push because it was working. Like, keep running that until someone stops it. Now, maybe that play's not on the call sheet against Tampa because of Vita Vea. And if Greg Gaines is healthy, then that's probably not a team you're tush pushing against with AJ Barner. So, yeah. Oh, yeah, it was Buddha. Yeah, Cam. Cam remembers the play for sure. Yeah, he saw Buddha in the hole, but Buddha wasn't even in the hole. He was approaching the hole. He was like, he was playing his gap. But Walker did his little spin out move 4 yards from where Buddha was standing, and he had nobody pursuing him on either side. That was such a bad play. This is an interesting call. Yeah, that's a Hawk's Eye with Bryce Coots again. Says one thing I haven't seen a lot in this passing game is rub routes. Remember how much trouble the Seahawks got in the last 3 or 4 years, getting called for offensive PI all the time for those little pick plays. We're not supposed to call them that, pick plays. Yeah, we haven't been doing that. MWM says, here's hoping it's your Mariners and my Jays in the ALCS. That'd be fun. I'd much rather face the Jays. Not because I think Jays are a good team, but I'd rather face them than the Yankees. I'd rather not have to face Aaron Judge and some of the pitching they have in just the history. Like, the Mariners have only been to the ALCS one other time. It was in 2001. We're the best team in baseball. We won 116 games, and the Yankees knocked us out in the ALCS. I'll never forget it. It still sticks with me. So I think it'd be a lot more fun to play the Blue Jays. Plus, Cal Raleigh really likes playing the Blue Jays. I don't know if you remember that or not, but yeah. And the Tigers going to the bullpen game, game 1, basically. So yeah, good opportunity to come out and get that game. And Skubal, hey, he's the best in the American League, but the Mariners beat him twice this year. And scored some runs, too. It wasn't cheapy. It wasn't like he left in the 7th with a 1-0 lead and we came back to win it against the bullpen. I think he gave up 7 or 8 earned runs in those 2 starts combined. But I like our bullpen much better than I like the Detroit bullpen. So I like our chances. Charlie Unicorn says, 40 hours until parking again near the stadium Sunday. Can't wait to see what the parking prices are. It's going to be gouge-ageddon is what it's going to be. But again, you guys, stop into Fast Fashion Brewing. Like it's not just because they sponsor me. Beer is too important to me. I know I'm drinking Blue Moon right now, but if I'm stopping at the store and I just want beer to have in the fridge and I don't want to think about what I'm drinking, like Blue Moon's fine. And plus in West Virginia, like the other options aren't good. It's just like a bunch of IPAs and then a bunch of shitty beer. And I just don't drink IPA anymore, really. But Fast Fashion, I wouldn't lie to you about beer. Like their stuff is so good, and their pizzas are phenomenal. They actually make them from scratch at the Masonry, which Matt Storm also owns in Lower Queen Anne, and then they put them in a Turbo Chef, and it's really, really good. We did our live camp shows from there with the Seahawks Syndicate, and it's fantastic. Of course, they sell beer on Sundays. Wait. Where was that? I put the wrong one up. OFG, dude. Where are you from? Oh, are you talking about West Virginia? Not Seattle. They do here. Indiana, which is where my fiance's family is from, still does not. That's crazy to me. They do have some weird laws here, though. Grocery stores can't refrigerate their wine. It's the weirdest thing. You cannot find refrigerated white wine, so you got to plan ahead, because you got to chill it yourself. And then where was another weird law? Oh, some of her family lives in Ohio too. So we stayed there. We stayed there a few times, made some day trips over the last few months, and they can't refrigerate anything alcoholic, except maybe like some of those malt beverage wine coolers or whatever. I think maybe they can. And so you just have these like, aisles and aisles of warm beer. It's so weird. Richard Bennett says more Bobo. I am kind of surprised we haven't seen much from Jake this year, but I just think, again, the passing volume just isn't there. At the end of the day, we're not throwing it 40 times a game. And so you're not going to get to wide receiver 3 and let alone 4 or 5. You're not going to get to Bobo and Derek Young as much as I want to see what that kid could finally do. You're not, that's why we're not getting as many targets to Arroyo like we thought. That being said, I think it's a fairly valid criticism of why you'd spend a second-round pick on a tight end in this offense if the volume's not going to be there to really make the value of that pick stand out. But I love the player, and so I try to push some of that stuff to the side because I just really like the player, and I think he's going to make plays for us. He's going to help us win games, obviously. I think you're asking, do you have to have your curtains closed to drink? No, not at all. Matthew McManus, did you see the goal line play where Shanahan drew it up where he started in 12 or 13 personnel, then split the tight end and McCaffrey out and got 2 linebackers, instant death to the defense? Hope Clint saw that one. I do think Clint has evolved, and I think he borrows stuff. I'll tell you, the best play that I saw from any team over the weekend was the Eagles putting a twist on the tush push that scored him to touchdown. Was it Saquon? Can't remember who it was to, where they're on the goal line. And instead of, tush pushing it, Jalen Hurts just pops out and like shovel passes the ball like right off the butt of his right tackle to, I think it was a running back, but it could have been a tight end that just kind of popped out, caught it, waltzed in for the touchdown. Just brilliant play calling. That was a big game for Shanahan. What's his reputation been? Great play scripter at the beginning of the game, so it didn't surprise me they got out to that fast start. Like, he's the best. I think he might even be better than McVay at that. But it's late in games when he's off script and how he gets conservative sometimes with the lead and lets teams back into it and then doesn't manage the clock very well and doesn't call plays necessarily great at the end of the game. Yeah, he's getting raves for how he called that game yesterday, and as well he should. That was a remarkable game. It really was. All right, let's see. Carly says, don't know if this has been asked already, but what are your thoughts on paying K9 now with his production so far? After game 1, I thought it'd be an easy no, but lately he's been so electric. Still too early to tell. It's such a tricky situation because, we kind of, the pendulum swings back and forth, right? And a couple of years ago, running back salaries normalized. And even the big name running backs that hit free agency in their mid-20s, like Josh Jacobs and Aaron Jones, were getting $8 million a year. That's kind of swung back. Like if James Cook is getting $12 million a year, that's probably Walker's market if he has a solid year. I think that's with some of the other guys that they probably want to take care of. I think that might be a little too rich. But I'll say this, it always takes two to tango, and the player has a say in it too. And if I'm Kenneth Walker, I don't know how he's wired. I don't know his personality. I've never talked to him. I can't get a beat on that. But this is a very running back friendly offense. And that's, assuming that the running game is going to continue to grow and develop. But traditionally, it's obviously an offense that features the running game, leans on the running game. It's going to give opportunities for running backs. Maybe he's willing to a more creatively structured contract to stay here if he wants to, if they want him back. And he doesn't care about just being the highest paid or whatever. The question is, can the Seahawks trust him? There was clearly frustration during camp from McDonald, as much as he tried to hide it, of having to manage his reps, to try to keep him fresh, keep him healthy. And I can only imagine what the film sessions are like when he has some of those 3 or 4 plays a game now still where he doesn't stick to the scheme and he bounces things outside and the negative runs. I know they love Charbonnet. I know they really like George Helani. We saw a lot out of Jacardier Wright that we liked, that I thought looked great. And those guys are all, much cheaper and under contract and everything else. So it's going to be one of the most interesting, I know that might sound like a cop-out, but it's going to be one of the most fascinating and interesting offseason questions, I think. If he stays healthy the whole year and ends up establishing himself as the running back one, eliminates some of the negative plays, has a dynamic year, helps his team make a deep playoff run, there's a path to bringing him back, even with all the other guys they have to sign. But again, it depends on the player too. It's not just as easy as do they want to sign him or not. So what does the player want? Daddy Dennis, yeah. Imagine signing your quarterback for $265 million and then finding out your backup is better. Now, I will say this. Mac Jones is not better than Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy came back too soon last week. He's not healthy. He's a very, very good quarterback. Just because Mac Jones has played admirably in his place, and played well against a team last night with a terrible secondary and linebackers that cannot cover. I think that's one thing that I just tuck that away for when we play the Rams in week 11. But it's a good problem to have, I think it's why the Seahawks go out and they get Drew Lock to come in. If anything happens to Sam Darnold, they want to make sure that this is a team that wants to win now, and thinks they're built to win now. And so they want a guy that they believe they can win with as their backup. I think John Schneider learned that lesson from the Trevon Boykin year, the Austin Davis year, right? And that's why, Geno was the backup for 4 or 5 years before he got a shot, and now it's Lock. He wasn't going to go with just Jalen Milroe and let's hope it works out. So I'll tell you what, Mac Jones, I think, is the next Sam Darnold. I think he's going to have a real market next offseason. I do. And there's certainly a team out there that's going to want him, because have you seen the quarterback class for 2026 and what it's looking like? With each passing week, I am more pleased that we have Sam Darnold and that we drafted Jalen Milroe this year to be developing in the shadows, because we don't have to be in the quarterback market for a while. And next year's class is looking pretty rough. We do this every year. We say, oh, look at next year. Look at the upside. Look at Lenore Sellers. Look at Arch Manning and that upside, and Nussmeier and Klubnik and Aller. Man, he can throw it through a brick wall and all these. And now you see it, and Aller doesn't look like he's taking a step forward. He looks like just a guy with a big arm, but nothing else. Manning's not coming out. Sellers is raw as hell. He's the kind of guy that gets people fired if you draft him at the top of the draft, if you don't develop him right, because you're going to play him too soon. The two guys that have played the most experience, that fit that profile that teams are looking for now of like 30, 40 starts in college, Cade Klubnik, Garrett Nussmeier, are both having they've both regressed this year. And also neither of those guys have elite traits. Neither of them have like a big time arm or are dynamic athletes. My favorite guy in the whole draft class is John Mateer. But he's out with the broken hand. I'm just glad that we don't have to be in that class right now. Cam says every team in the NFL has flaws right now. Seattle just may have a shot at Lombardi. Never know. Yeah, absolutely they do. I still think the Eagles are kind of the class of the league right now, but they had to pull one out of the hat against the Rams. The Bucs almost pulled one out of a hat against them. You know, the first 3 weeks of the year, they weren't getting A.J. Brown involved. Now they are. Teams have kind of figured out how to slow Saquon down. He hasn't been as disruptive this year. So, yeah, it's interesting stuff. Richard chiming in on the running back conversation says Kenny Mack will be back. K9 probably a free agent. I'm not letting K9 walk because a guy that's had 2 ACLs in the last 4 years is potentially coming back. I think in a vacuum, like the K9 situation is going to stand on its own. Do we like the player? Is this a player that fits? Is this a player we think can help us win? And can we afford him? And does he want to be here? If you get caught up in like, well, we got Kenny and we got Helani. Well, we've seen here in Seattle, we've seen running backs fall like flies, and it happens. And you can never, ever, ever have too many. Tony, Dante Moore might be the best quarterback in college right now. Well, he's the most talented quarterback, potentially. He started, 7 or 8 games at UCLA his freshman year, and now he started 4 this year in Oregon. It's not enough. It's not enough. These guys, the quarterbacks need to learn, and the teams are starting to learn now too. They're placing a value on playing a lot more in college because you just can't be patient with these guys when you take them at the top of the draft. You can't develop them. You have to throw them in there. And so if Dante Moore is smart, he won't come out this year. It's also a very, very small sample size. But there's another shout out for Dante Moore, Chris B. I think Dante Moore is playing really good and maybe better than most quarterbacks this year. Which just goes to show you there was a time in the offseason where the Ducks, I can't remember the kid's name, but the Ducks had they signed a recruit. He was a 5-star and he committed to him. And then a couple of weeks after being on campus, he decommitted and entered the transfer portal. And a lot of the comments at the time were, well, he got to look at Dante Moore and realize he wasn't going to play there. So, yeah. But yeah, he's pretty talented. Pretty damn talented. Smokey Joe says, Sam's going to win MVP this year. Our offense will allow him to be just as good as last year, and he won't have those bad games with this team. He's not going to have the volume, though, Smokey Joe. That's the thing. Like, I think to win an MVP as a quarterback, you got to throw 40 touchdowns. You know, you got to have 5,000 yards. I don't know that the volume's going to be there. But, man, I don't care about accolades. We found our franchise quarterback. And how good does that feel? Like, he's just been so good. One of my favorite things, I know I've said this quite a bit on the show, in any sport, but especially baseball and football, is watching players grow and develop right before our eyes and get better every game and get better every year. And some fans don't want to give players a chance to develop. And they only see what they see right now, and they judge the player based on that. Sam has gotten better every single year in the league. And then I got to go to training camp and watch him get better in this offense every single day. And now I feel like we're seeing him get better every game that goes by. He's a perfect fit for the offense. He and Kubiak seem to be a perfect fit. I think the sky's the limit. I think, yeah, I'll say it. You can win a Super Bowl with Sam Darnold. I 100% agree with that. And I think we're going to be talking about, I know the Seahawks don't like to do quarterback extensions or any extensions until it's the last year of a player's deal. I think maybe quarterbacks are different, and you could free up quite a bit of money next year if you add some years onto Sam's deal. It wouldn't shock me if they kind of went away from that rule for a quarterback and extended him next year. At minimum, though, we're talking about an extent. I'm already convinced. I know I've said it before, but the question was like, oh, it's a 3-year deal. You can get out of it after 2. You can really get out of it after 1 without too much pain, but certainly after 2. And if Milroe's ready to take over, and I think I even said on someone's podcast in the offseason that by 2027, Milroe was going to be the starting quarterback here, and that was no knock on Sam. I thought he'd have a couple good years. No. Sam's getting extended. He's going to be the quarterback here long term, for a long time. He can throw 40 touchdowns. The volume's going to have to pick up. And it may as the season goes along. I think that defense is going to take the ball away. If the running game gets better, you're going to be better on third down. You're going to extend more drives. And that's going to give him more red zone opportunities, and that's where that comes around. And he was really good in the red zone last year in Minnesota. I think it was 24 touchdowns to 5 interceptions in the red zone. Really decisive. He just hasn't had that many opportunities yet. So I do think that'll come. He's going to have some 300-yard, 4-touchdown games. He absolutely will. And I think he'll start to use his feet a little bit more. We saw the one where he tucked it and ran up the middle against Arizona. We haven't seen designed runs, and I do think it's going to be a part of this offense at some point. I still kind of feel like this offense is, A, still kind of finding their way a little bit, but also, B, still not getting to their entire play call sheet. Like, I don't want to say holding stuff back, but because I think that's a dangerous thing to play with. Like, well, we don't want the Rams. We play them week 11. We want to hunt. No. But I do think they're only kind of giving this offense, it's all installed, but they're only giving them on a weekly basis in the game plans and on the call sheet what they think they can handle that week. I do think as good as this offense has been for the most part this year, I do think we're still kind of just scratching the surface of what it can be. I do. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up. Again, shout out to Fast Fashion Brewing. If you're going down to the Stadium District this weekend, go check them out and try their beers, and then come back to me and tell me what your favorites are. That QR code up in the corner is the Patreon. Check that out. Get in on that, and at least follow or bookmark it or whatever if you don't want to sign up for the all everything tier until the bye week when we roll some new stuff out. And then you can also check out the Substack, which is linked down below in the description. I put a piece up today kind of going into a little more detail about all the connections between these teams, more detail than I talked about today. But that's free for now as well. All the other ways that you can support me are listed and linked down below in the description. If any of you are going to the Mariner game, man, scream extra loud for me. I've decided to take credit for their success for 2 reasons. One is on September 2nd, I tweeted when they were at the tail, it was before they went to Atlanta. It was on that second road trip where it was going so badly. And I tweeted, this team is done and everyone's going to get fired. Since that time, they only lost like 4 games. So that's one reason that I'm going to take a little bit of credit, because I like reverse jinxed them. But also, apparently when I'm not at home, when I'm not in Seattle, they do better. Because in 1995, when they beat the Yankees and went to the division series that year, I was stuck in North Dakota back in my broadcasting days. So maybe I just need to leave the area every September and October so the Mariners can thrive. Because they were still struggling when I was home during training camp. It was only after I left that they kind of took off. So I'll take a little credit for that. So have a great time. And if you go out to the game on Sunday, be sure to check out right after the game on Sunday. I'll be going live. And because it's a home game, maybe I won't go live as soon as the game ends. Take a little time, watch some of the post-game stuff, put a couple of graphics together, and give you guys a little bit of a chance to get out of the stadium if you want to tune in yourself and do that. But tomorrow's a day off. Enjoy the Mariners, and get ready for Seahawks and Bucs on Sunday. In the meantime, follow me on Twitter at Seahawks Forever, because that's where you can just kind of interact with me and engage and just get my random silly thoughts throughout the day on all things Seahawks and some other stuff. And also just anything I ever produce, audio podcasts, written word, videos, I always put the links up there. So that's kind of the one-stop shop if you want to follow everything I do. Got a last-minute super super chat to get to from Tony. Ravens fans are really missing Mike. You think Roquan Smith could be available at the trade deadline? I don't. I think they need to, especially with Matt Abuike out, like they need to hang on to as many good players as they can, because that team's not going to give up on playoff chances. As long as they got Lamar, and I know he's going to miss a couple of weeks, but as long as they have him, they can go as far as they want to, and except the Super Bowl. We haven't seen that from Lamar yet, but I think it's way too soon maybe to give up on him. Besides, can he play weak side linebacker? I don't know that he and Ernest Jones would really be compatible. But anyway, thanks again, you guys. Really appreciate it. Love having you along for the ride, and it never escapes my attention. It means the world to me that there's so many other things you guys could be doing on a Friday night. And 313 of you, at least, there have been more throughout this stream, are sitting here chatting with me about the silly game of football and allowing me to try to make a go of this as a full-time content creator. So thank you so much for that. Until next time, what do I always say? Forever and always, go Hawks. I need to make shirts with that on it. One of these days I will. Until then, thanks for watching.